Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to your 4-day notice of Valentine's Day. For all of you who sometimes forget. Welcome to the February 10th, 2026 Community Reinvestment Agency Board meeting. Our meetings are public, and you're welcome to join us in person on Zoom or by watching from the Salt Lake City Council's agenda page, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. As we always will begin with item A, which is comments, and thank you for joining us. We begin our meetings with comments to the board. I'd like to remind you that written comments may be submitted to the CRA office via P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114, or by emailing us council.comments@slc.gov, or our phone line 801-535-7654. Before we start, I want to remind everyone about our rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure our meetings are moving along well and to help everyone feel comfortable sharing their comments. A copy of the full rules of decorum are available. If you'd like to make a general comment today, we are accepting comments in person or online with on Zoom. Scott Corpany from our staff will moderate our Zoom and will message you with any questions about your registration. If you need to speak with our staff, please select Scott from the list of participants, or you can also raise your hand in Zoom to indicate that you need something from the host. Staff are handling any tasks, so please limit messages to technical issues and minimal information updates. Taylor Hill on our staff will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order in which we receive the names. If you are on Zoom, please unmute your mic. When Taylor calls your name, we will open our general comment period. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one person registered to speak, and that will be Lily White, who is here in person.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't think I was going to be the only one to speak. Hi. I have been introducing myself a little bit to you guys, but this is the RDA, I assume, right? But I have had the same pitch to the City Council members as well. I would just like to engage in a debate or a discussion with you guys regarding the Fleet Block mural project. I would like to say that I am sort of an expert in the neighborhood. My family and I had a house on 911 South Gale Street, right across the street from the Fleet Block, and I've been attending RDA and CRA meetings since 2013 regarding that. And so I know the big application deadline is the February 16th, I believe. So I would love to connect with you guys if you guys are able and interested. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And there's just one commenter, Taylor?
Yep, that was the only registered commenter. Okay,
thank you. And now public hearings. We have no public hearings. And now to the CRA business in general. We will be moving the item 1, which is the resolution of the Northwest Quadrant LLC tax increment reimbursement request, to a future date. We'll move on to item 2, which is the resolution of the USA Climbing at Rio Grande District, Salt Lake's Mattress Company building. And at the table we will have Kate and Ashley Ogden from the Senior Project Manager. It's all yours, Kate.
Great. This is a follow-up briefing to the prior meeting. I just wanted to bring your attention to a little bit of public comment that we have received and was forwarded to your inboxes February 2nd and January 25th from some other national gym owners. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley. The hope is that you potentially take action today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is this stuck here now? No, okay. Next slide, please. So yeah, this item is a continuation of the briefing provided on January 13th, where staff presented 2 options for incorporating the Salt Lake Mattress Company building into the larger USA Climbing project. So those projects covered what it would look like to adaptively reuse the building versus reconstructing the building utilizing its historic materials. And based on discussions had at that meeting, staff took a stab at redlining the previously approved term sheet for the USA Climbing project to clarify that USA Climbing will reconstruct the mattress building with an increased reimbursement allowance of up to $6.25 million. And in the transmittal, we asked the board to review the amended term sheet and consider approving it with the attached resolution. Next slide. So it's just a reminder of the terms that are currently in place that impact the mattress building. So this is how our term sheet currently reads. The first one, deals with the ongoing activation of the building with publicly accessible food and beverage and retail uses, as well as the private USA Climbing offices. Those activities are considered a community benefit that is being provided with the project, the activation of the building for the whole ground lease term. The second term stipulates USA Climbing will pay the upfront costs to rehabilitate the building, and the CRA will reimburse them up to $6 million for that work. Next slide. Staff proposes to replace the second term on the previous slide with the language on this slide. So this would be the bulk of the term language related to reconstruction of the building. It reads, USA Climbing shall expend all reasonable efforts to reconstruct the Salt Lake Mattress Company building to match historic conditions, including building placement, massing, and fenestration patterns, with exceptions subject to approval by CRA staff. The building shall be carefully deconstructed and the historic bricks cleaned, safely stored, and reappointed to clad the interior and exterior of the structure. USA Climbing will take on the responsibility of paying upfront costs of design, demolition, and reconstruction, and the CRA will reimburse USA Climbing up to $6.25 million for these costs. Next slide. So if the board chooses to adopt the amended term sheet today, USA Climbing will advance the design of a reconstructed mattress building, and USA Climbing's reimbursement allowance will be increased by $250,000. That's everything I have.
Thank you, Ashley. Board, questions for Ashley?
Chair, I've got my hand up.
Yes, go ahead, Board Member Lopez-Chavez.
Thank you. I know that you've listed this and briefed us prior in regard to the reconstruction. I was just curious to see if we had looked at what the cost would be in a tear down to do a brick building, but instead of reconstructing it based off of historic design, just trying to update the contemporary design. I had some constituents reach out last week that were just curious as to why we wouldn't seek more contemporary design and wanted to understand that.
Just to clarify, you mean preparing a cost estimate to build a building of a comparable size and scale?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I think we could get an informed estimate of what that would be, but no, I don't think that was one of the options that they got an estimate for from the construction contractor.
And Board Member Lopez-Chavez, I'm just chiming in with maybe just a little context. At the time that the board made the decision to purchase the property, the policy goal at the time of that board, now granted it was several years ago and different board members, the policy goal of that time period was that the reason that the board bought the property was to have that warehouse preserved. So that might inform why we haven't done an estimate about more new architecture, because the original policy goal was that historic preservation. Now, if this board feels differently and wants to weigh in on changing that policy goal, I think that's entirely up to you guys.
Thanks. Yeah, I remember you stating that at the last meeting. I just wanted to put that on the record because I had quite a bit of constituents ask, since this is a really high square footage cost for design and I think it begs the question, is it real preservation or not? I'm personally in favor. I'm curious to see what the cost would be to design a building with brick facade, but with an analysis to show us what a contemporary design could look like. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have received a number of public comments related to this item from individuals in the planning community, and some of the public comments that have surfaced, I share some of those concerns about the overall financial viability of the project, and particularly I have questions about, is $250,000 really a make or break on this project? And if it is a make or break on the project, it raises alarm bells for me about the overall financial viability of the project as a whole. And I should say that I share these concerns as somebody who lives nearby a large public asset that could really get activated more often, and we want to see that activation happen. So I want to see this part of town transformed. I want to see a larger scale activation in that area. I think we all benefit from that, the city and our constituents, but I am having some concerns about this additional request for funding.
Board Member Young.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Carlson. It does raise like some hesitation in terms of, recognizing that there are additional costs. I'm balancing that with also just the basic understanding that, when you go through any, property buying process, especially with a historical building, there's just those unknowns that until you really get in there, you don't know. So I think where I am is that I understand the request for this additional funding and am generally supportive of it. But I also would clarify that this isn't an open line of credit, and that it's okay, we understand you've run into this. This is a one-time help you out, but I'm not really interested in entertaining future, hey, by the way, we found more issues. At that point as a project, if we can't, sustain that, then we just need to look for a different opportunity.
Thank you, Board Member Pui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I felt like the conversation here and the information brought up to us and the community feedback has made me shift a little bit on this issue. I'm still 100% supportive of the overall goal here. The applicant and what they're trying to do in this neighborhood is going to be game changer for the district, and I'm 100% supportive of that. That nothing has changed on my mind on that objective. Now we're talking about literally bricks and some old mortar, but because of the financial situation that we need to be, we are in, and we need to be careful about how we prioritize the needs of the city as a whole. I will be more open to some of the alternative conversations that have been brought up here. Are there other ways to rebuild this or to include some of the historic materials like it was brought up online by Councilmember Lopez Chavez, or completely changing the direction with the modern building, but what brought up by other council members here. So I'm open to more options than just those two. Certainly the Lego idea of taking it all down and putting it back together because it's the cheaper option seems to be, out of those two options, the best one, because it's the most affordable one, and it play respects to the historical sense of that building. But just for the sake of being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars and money, I wonder if there are better options out there, and I would love to explore those.
Thank you. Kind of just looking at it from the same kind of view here, and the different lenses. We made the decision years ago to, one of our priorities is preservation of historic buildings. And now you can really debate on what is more valuable, this mattress building or some other structure on the historical scale of importance and beauty and other items. And preserving historic buildings has always been more expensive than, scraping a building. But that also comes with a price of scraping a building and scraping your history. So we have to weigh that as a council. I would venture to guess scraping and rebuilding a nice modern, net zero building may be less expensive than $6 million. I would render to guess. It'd probably be less expensive. But then you lose that history. So we, as a council, made decisions years ago to say we want to preserve this building, just like we've said we want to preserve other buildings for their historical needs. So if that's a decision we want to look at, we should then have that conversation at some point. And in this case, we said we wanted to keep this building. USA Climate said, you can keep the building, which is going to cost us, $6 million. We figured that out to preserve it in its state. Then we realized, it's going to be a little bit more than that because of it's not really, as we know, it's being held up by trestles, whatever. I would say trestles, whatever the architect was, Darren. And it's being held up, right? And because it's not well preserved at this point. So to preserve it as best we can, it's going to cost us another $250,000, vice $1.3 million if we were to try to keep it as it is now, but also have the safety concerns and also other concerns about keeping it up. So that's our decision we need to look at and realize that the request to keep it is our request of them. It's not their request of us. So we have to look at this, and I think I'm all in favor of reviewing that again, because that would, again, it's taxpayers' money, but it's our decision on how we want to spend it, historic preservation or not. So I appreciate it, and I think you're right. We should probably take a review of this because it's at this time we have the opportunity.
Mr. Chair, do you think, and I would love to hear from RDA staff or CRA staff, sorry, keep struggling with that, CRA staff, are there other options that we can explore, and how will that look like for your staff and for the applicant? The last thing I want is to threaten the overall project, right? Like knowing that I don't think anybody in this table or the majority of us don't feel like we want the project to take a different direction, right? Like we are committed to that. We're talking about the actual historic building that we, unfortunately, seems like we cannot save. So what options are there? What it will look like for you and your staff to explore those?
Yeah, I think I was trying to keep track of the different points that were made. I think under that scenario, if we were to open it up to all options for treatment of the Salt Lake Mattress building, I'm sure it would open up, I'm not going to speak for USA Climbing, but it would definitely open up a conversation about how that building footprint area should be used. There's a lot of reasons in Rio Grande District Plan why we wanted to save that historic warehouse. It kind of has a counterpart on the other side of a plaza we have planned. But right now it kind of is, it would be an appendage to the new construction, the larger training center. So I think it might open up a conversation about, would it make the most sense to rebuild a smaller modern building in this location? Or, I think that there's a lot of ways that conversation could go when it comes to the design of the project. USA Climbing would definitely have to revisit the design and redo some design work if anything were to change. I did want to, there's a couple other things. Is it okay? Oh.
No, you could. Something popped in my head, and it's probably stupid, but could the building be rebuilt? Seems like many of us, in the last conversation, rebuilding and including some of the new, taking it down, rebuilding it was the cheaper option, and hence this money request. Mm-hmm. Could the building be do the same but smaller? So, to the tune of $250,000 less of square footage. Could that be an option that could be, explored? So like it still plays the historical aspect, it's still like it's rebuilding, but then like we achieve some of the middle ground in it. Sorry, I'm throwing some nonsense to you.
No, that's okay. I think that's something we could definitely explore. I think we would be getting away from I guess, a true historic preservationist would say that'd be a pretty big departure from even trying to replicate that building. But yeah, I think we could definitely explore other options if there wasn't support to reconstruct the building using the historic materials. And there was one related point that I wanted to respond to. I think under any scenario, if we wanted USA Climbing to reconstruct using historic materials, I think that's the biggest piece that's escalating costs here is the reuse of that historic brick. They're not just taking a bulldozer to the building, they'll be deconstructing it slowly and carefully, cleaning off there's layers of paint on those bricks, cleaning them, storing them safely, putting them back up. So, it's not going to be the cheapest building, even if we want to reuse those historic materials and keep some of that character. There is a lot of cost associated with that. And one thing I just wanted to take the opportunity to clarify related to the larger scope and the funding for the whole project. I think you can kind of look at the new construction and the Salt Lake mattress work almost as two separate scopes. USA Climbing is fundraising for the funding to construct the larger National Training Center project. The terms that we landed on back in July 2024, the CRA was making the commitment to reimburse them up to $6 million to rehab Salt Lake mattress. And that was our most educated estimate at what it would cost to get that building up to a warm shell, like completely finished except for very specific interior tenant improvements. So I would say that it was our intent to, we knew we were funding the majority of the work to rehab the Salt Lake mattress building, and that was our intent. From the moment USA Climbing expressed interest in locating in Rio Grande District, we actually had them look at the Blue Warehouse, which is another historic warehouse. We really were trying to sell rehabbing, reusing some of those warehouses that we wanted to keep standing. So, we knew we were committing to funding the bulk of that work, but they were carrying it out, and we would be reimbursing them as well. So they were paying all of the upfront costs and actually seeing the work through, activating the building, incorporating it into their project. So, we did this increased cost to create a funding gap, but I think that's, we felt that it's palatable and reasonable that they're coming to us with that funding gap because, our intent was to fund the bulk of those costs. So I just wanted to separate that. They are fundraising. They have a lot of fundraising to do on the bulk of the project, but we've always kind of seen the two elements, historic and new, as kind of separate funding scopes.
Thank you, Ashley.
Are we able to get an update on kind of how the fundraising of the project is going? And is there an opportunity for private dollars, maybe from CERTA? I don't know, I'm just throwing an idea out there. The mattress people, who might have an interest. I'm joking, obviously, but can we get an update on where fundraising as a whole, and have they thought also about fundraising for this additional, particularly for the historic preservation part of this?
Yeah, I would defer to USA Climbing to speak on the fundraising efforts in progress. I haven't seen anything, public about that yet, and we could talk with them to maybe come up with a way to provide progress updates or at least an update.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Quickly, I'm not an architect. Don't pretend to be. I mean, in a different life, I would love to be one, but I imagine that the crazy ideas that I threw in about like potentially making it smaller or making a new building with some of the historical aspects in there, coming up with some of those designs, some of those ideas will also cost money. Is that could that be correct? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think if we were to start actually fleshing out what any of those things might look like, there would definitely be costs with that.
So now we are on the sake of saving some money or not spending this $250,000, potentially getting in the way of spending more money to come up with some other options. And again, I was the one who threw some of those ideas there, so I own my fault on that. But I think that for us it's a good question to discuss, right? And I think that they are asking for direction from us, and if we are okay with that direction, and knowing that it may cost also additional money, I think it's worth to explore.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Puig. I think what I'm gathering is that we still have some questions on it. So it would really kind of behoove us, because again, this was our request and it was our estimate on the 6 million. And like I think Councilmember or Board Member Young said, anytime you're going to remodel your house, it's going to be, you're going to find some mysteries and some really special things in that are going to be costly. So I think it'd be in our responsibility to step back a second here, gather our thoughts with Ashley and maybe Danny and your staff on some of these different options, because we don't want to spend $250,000 thinking of different options to save $250,000. So, but we also need to give you a decision, and we can't continue to kick the can down the road. So Danny, let's figure out how to time to have some small groups meetings with a couple of council members on this. Board members, I guess, on this. You good with that, Board Member Puig? Okay, thanks. All right, we'll move on. Item number 3, an informational, thank you very much, Ashley. Informational update on the tenant wealth building partnership with the Perpetual Housing Fund. Allison Rowland and Tracy, there's Tracy. Hi, Tracy. And Allison must be online. Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so this is an update. We have Chris Parker here with us today to talk about the status and kind of any updates that have happened with the Perpetual Housing Fund of Utah. So just to give you a little bit of background, in August of 2023, the CRA Board approved a resolution and term sheet to provide $10 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds, or ARPA funds, to the Perpetual Housing Fund for a tenant wealth building partnership. The $10 million was part of an ARPA funds allocated to Salt Lake City as part of the federal COVID-19 relief and recovery efforts. The ARPA funds were used to acquire a condominiumized portion of a larger building located at 515 East, 100 South. This portion of the building was converted to affordable housing units targeting households earning 25 to 50% AMI and include participation in Perpetual Housing Fund's Tenant Wealth Building Initiative, which will share the majority of their profits generated from annual cash flow, long-term equity generation, future refinancing, and sales proceeds with PHF residents. In exchange for providing these ARPA funds to PHF, PHF has committed to building 1,000 tenant wealth building units over the next 20 years. And additionally, the CRA will be treated like an equity investor, and we expect to receive 2 to 6% return annually. And as a part of that CRA agreement with PHF, it requires that PHF provides updates on its progress in developing affordable units that provide opportunities to build wealth. So that's why we have Chris Parker here today to provide that update.
Hello. Hi, thanks for having me. It's so nice to be in front of you without asking for a zoning change or some other thing. I'd also like to take an opportunity to really brag up Tracy and Danny and Allison. I think for the year it took to actually get those funds into a project after 2023, I think we had September of 24 was the date that we closed that project. I think there were several months where we would just leave the Zoom on at night because we knew the next meeting in the morning would be each other trying to get this thing done. It was a brand new thing. The council took a tremendous risk in funding it, and it worked. That took a massive amount of work, so we really enjoyed working with the city staff. I can't really imagine this getting off the ground if they weren't who they are. So Perpetual Housing Fund, how do I advance? I say next slide. Tracy's already gone through kind of what we agreed to. Went ahead and funded a big old building. And then in one of the rare instances of buy one, get 10 free, we also have an additional 1,000 perpetual housing fund units over the next 20 years that we've committed to providing that would have the tenant wealth initiative as part of them. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. That funded 515 Tower, which again, we had our closing in September of 2024. I'm happy to report that that building's 96 units are 100% occupied and have been for some time. We have a lot of families living in the aspirations of this council. Let's go to the next. Had a nice event not too long ago where we got to celebrate the opening. That was very well attended. I can say that after that event, I had 16 calls from different cities and states throughout the United States who were interested in how their organizations or cities or councils might do something similar. So this was innovative, not just because we thought it was, but clearly people are paying attention to what happened. Next slide. And they look pretty nice too. I think the majority of the comments we got as people toured the building was, my goodness, like, I wish I could buy one of these. I do wish I could have bought one of them. And our residents are very, very excited. When we do like a little poll now and again on how long do you think you'll be staying, and of any project GIV has ever built, this one was a lot longer than what the average kind of timelines for those are. Not the least of which, because over half this building, or half of this building is large 3 and 4 bedroom units. Those did rent the absolute quickest.
Say that one more time, the size?
Half of the building is 3 and 4 bedroom units.
Okay.
And those rented almost immediately, as soon as they went out. Studios and ones took a little bit longer to rent, but families were looking for something that they could afford, independent of it having this cool, fancy perpetual housing fund model on top of it. Next slide. So you've got a building that has some cool housing units. I thought I'd also give you a little bit of an update about what this building is doing beyond the housing. One of the benefits of having funded an organization that sees itself as a civic servant as well is that it does the type of projects that are housing plus, if you will. Next slide. So this building wanted to go ahead and have a variety of uses beyond residential, not only for the tenants of the building, but also for the community at large. And it is proceeding with that goal. The bottom floor, happy to report over the holiday season, partnered with Toys for Tots for their HQ for the Salt Lake distribution. Over 20,000 children were able to receive toys in the bottom of this building. That wouldn't have happened but for buying it. On the second floor of this building, there's a Montessori school designed for the community, the people who will be working in this building, and also the people who will be living in this building. Happy to report that we're now engaged in conversations for them to quadruple the amount of space that they are currently in the building to extend that use. Green Bike's headquarters is in the building. All of their tech stuff is already there. Their office is moving in. That means everybody that lives in the building gets free Green Bike, as well as being a great asset to the community. You've got the housing kind of going on above that. Assist Architects has been in conversations with us recently. They're a nonprofit architecture firm that really helps people with mobility impairment, either modify their own homes or find housing that is built for them to be able to be used. United Way is under construction right now to change the 12th floor of this building into their new headquarters, leaving the residents of these buildings with access to almost every type of services you can imagine, a short phone call away. Intermountain Health has talked about putting a mobile clinic in the building so that you don't, if you have 5 or 10 minutes and you feel sick, we're not going to let that persist for several weeks while you're doing that, for an amenity for both the people in the building and the community. And then impact co-working on the top floors. We imagine that we will launch a capital campaign later this year. Our original intent was to do something of a PHF-esque model for that co-working for nonprofits and social impact groups. We think now we might be able to do even better than that and actually do a fundraise for the majority of the costs of that and see how close to zero we really can get for these organizations for their rent. Ideally, no one would have to fundraise just to have office space. That's usually not anyone's actual mission, but it is a necessity. One of the groups that has already moved into there is Utah Foundation. That's a special relationship with PHF in that in exchange for free rent, they actually have agreed to do a long-scale longitudinal study on the residents of PHF. What actually is important to these individuals, and how does this financial program that we have actually affect them and their progeny over time? Many might be familiar with a Harvard study that's gone multi-generations that really looks at very specific impacts and how that compares to other people with dissimilar backgrounds. Utah Foundation is among the best, I'll say. Certainly my favorite kind of research group, and they were very appropriate to go ahead and do this. What is the net effect of all of this stuff sort of study? Plus, they're very cool. We like having them in this space. You have kind of the existing structure. I hope the next time we talk, I can tell you all sorts of other nonprofits that have been in the building. But that's kind of the direction it's trying to go right now. Next slide. In addition to that, we're getting ready to build a second facility on that site. Those of you who've seen the site know that there's a parking garage on the side of it. As wonderful as parking garages are, this building was built to support 600 parking stalls, and we don't need that in a primarily residential context, and especially not in a shared residential and office context. So it's nice when 6 floors are office and 8 floors are residential. You actually don't need a parking stall for each of them. People leave and people can come during the day. So you might end up with a building like this. You also, if we'll advance the slide one more, may end up with a building like this. This building is allowed, it may be allowed by virtue of an inline addition part of the code, but is not by right. So I can't promise you that building because we got to go through planning, and we'll see how that goes. But one of the two, generally, we'd like to go ahead and give you a permit sometime this year, probably earlier in the year. We'll be submitting for permit with the expectation that by the end of the year we will submit for a 4% LIHTC application for this. The existing building had AMIs between 25 and 50. We would like the middle of this building to be 60% AMI. And then in partnership with Rocky Mountain Homes Fund, we would like 25 for sale, affordable 3-bedroom condos that through their model would serve basically 80 to 120, which means in aggregate, you would have virtually every person who cannot afford a home in Salt Lake City have a unit that they might live in this structure. Next slide. We're doing some other stuff too. And part of this, I want to talk about some of the direct projects that we're doing, but I also want to talk about some of the typologies of projects that, as we've understood the city's goals over the years, we felt would be of special interest. This one, the council has already actually seen. We did a financing request some time ago for some for sale affordable projects as a third phase of what was a Project Open project that GIV did back in the day. We actually found that we didn't need the city's funds, and so we returned them as promptly as we understood that to be the case. One of the benefits of, again, having an organization that sees itself as more of an ally than someone asking for checks for its specific uses. Go ahead and go to the next slide on this. We had to do a redesign of this particular building. We have a power line in front of the building, which created some interesting complications with fire code. Not to bore you too much, but fire code requires you to both have the long side of your building be your aerial apparatus access, but also says you cannot have a power line street be your aerial apparatus access. And in our case, both of those conflicted. And so we went ahead and redesigned this building to be shorter so that it could go ahead and avoid having to have aerial apparatus altogether. These will be 20 3-bedroom for sale condos, and our price targets will be give or take $300,000 for those, which in combination with Rocky Mountain Homes Fund, who may be taking over a portion of them, really allows some truly affordable, almost rent level mortgages for these. So this is into the city for permit right now. I apologize for not having a fully rendered pretty version of it, but honestly, I was throwing this together, trying to meet the 11:30 deadline. But generally speaking, we expect to break ground sometime this year once we're through permit. This will be fully financed internally, so there are no other loans. We did have some participation from the county with some grant funding back in the day, but this really is fully borne by the sorts of funds that this council gave. Next slide. Another thing that we've been playing around with is one of my favorite things that the city has done over the last year or two are all of the zoning changes that have really gotten to affordable housing. One of the more interesting of them is the massive rezone that was done for the AHI initiative that took ordinary lots and basically kind of democratized development in a meaningful way, where anyone who had a big backyard might be able to add a couple units to their house. So cool. So we felt like it would be great for us to do a demonstration project on how this might work. This particular site is on 1000 West and 570 South. What's fun about it is it kind of abuts this little micro park, and it's a double lot. So currently the lot goes horizontal. We're gonna do a boundary line adjustment to make it go vertical, and we actually get 2 lots on this site. So we intend to go ahead and have this end up preserving the existing home and adding 6 additional affordable units to the site in a way that we feel like will really fit with the character of this neighborhood. Ultimately, it may come down to 4. Again, you'll see a proposal for this a little bit, but by AHA right, we should be able to fit some more units on this. And I honestly, I don't think you could find a better site to go ahead and demonstrate how soft density can show up and actually feel better than maybe what is there. So is this a massive amount of units? No. Did we feel like this is something that was nice to do in partnership with the city to show, this style of product? Yes. So we'll go ahead and start that this year. Next slide. The other thing that's fun, on a much different scale, is figuring out what you could do with large swaths of land that are underutilized. We were approached, Give was approached by the Road Home a year ago, 2 years ago, I think 2 years ago. And they have an existing facility, Palmer's Court, that serves kind of the hardest housing need in the city. We were asked if we could go ahead and renovate this building for them, find a way to go ahead and make things a little bit better. And after touring the facility, it was clear that there was no way that structure was going to live up to the aspirations of the staff or the needs of the residents. At the end of the day, it just wasn't built for that. It's got 8 points of egress and 100 operable windows on the main floor, and was old before it became this use. It's done amazing work in its time, but we know a little bit more about PSH now than we did 20 years ago. So we, in partnership with them, recommended, well, why don't we just build you a custom-built facility for your use case? This is a 6-acre site currently of D2 land, a modern building in the little red kind of area is thought to be constructed. It'll have 187 units of permanent supportive housing, which is slightly less than they have currently. Right now, they have both mixed populations of singles and families. We'd like to separate those out. And started chatting with them about maybe that course of action. We were very lucky to also partner with First Step House. And I'm happy to report that on the Give side, we don't want PHF to be necessarily engaged in things outside of its charter. But on the Give side, we were successful in getting awarded tax credits for this brand new facility, which will make a huge change on people's ability to really run a facility in a way that, again, is the best possible way of handling this population. What that does, and maybe next slide, what that does on the PHF side is it has 5 acres in the heart of a community that's seeing massive input on another big project not too far from here, from the city, that's available to make a real impact from both a number of units and also from a quality of life for the neighborhood. This site currently has a single use. We would like this site to end up having a very multidimensional use case with a whole lot of tenant wealth initiative housing, probably some affordable owner components, and then a large public amenity. We are planning on beginning that planning process, not necessarily with Salt Lake City, but with the residents, taking a lot of feedback here in the next month, with the idea that as soon as this building to the bottom here is complete, that you'd see a really large-scale development that's trying to get as much amenitization for the neighborhood as we can, as well as some meaningful impacts on, affordable wealth sharing and affordable ownership in this neighborhood. As we've heard a lot of the feedback from the ballpark planning initiative, we basically circled everything that it looked like the current ballpark maybe wasn't going to be able to provide on their site, and are actively brainstorming how you might get a good chunk of that on this side, along with some desperately needed family housing. Next slide. Those are the sorts of things that we're working out. That particular site, you would imagine somewhere between 400 and 600 units on. Again, some of those would be, I think the majority of those would be TWI, but they could be ownership, they could be market rate. I think we're planning on listening a lot over the next 6 months. And then once that's gone forward, come back with a more concrete plan for that second phase. Right now we're focused on getting the first phase done, which is a very cool building in itself. It'll be modular, be the largest modular execution, I think, in Salt Lake, unless I'm mistaken. Very cool stuff. I wanted to take an opportunity as a closing slide to talk about Tina a little bit, because I didn't get a chance to say much about her in this actual day. But I think it's fairly reflective of what we're trying to do and really what this council has enabled. Tina and her partner Daryl were actually some of the very first tenants in GIV's first Salt Lake City building called North 6th, which was built 11 years ago, I want to say. I lived in that building, and GIV later had its headquarters in the bottom floor of the building. And that meant that because Tina had 2 dogs that were walked with the frequency that only deep, deep love would support, I got to see Tina's interactions over almost 10 years with everyone in the neighborhood, as she was right outside GIV's offices talking to them. And invariably, the first interaction with Tina would be learning your name. And then every single time she talked to you again, it would be, Chris, I am so glad to see you. And she would give you that smile. Daryl, her partner, ultimately passed away, as did one of those pooches, unfortunately. And it became time for Tina to think about moving into a different place to live. And she is one of our tenants now in 515. What's interesting about her story is that I'm very proud of North 6th. That was our first thing. Everybody knows a million things that they'd like to change about their first project, but generally, I love that there was stability given to everybody that lived in that building over the last 10 years. However, it is now past 10 years, and it is about to refinance. And so we're able actually to calculate what Tina would have had if that building were a PHF building versus just a GIV building. And this year, for residents of that building, they would be receiving a $2,500 check, and would have gotten that annually for several years in the past. And then because this building is about to refinance, Tina's units cut would have been around $70,000. Now, $70,000 would look like a lot of different things to many people in that building. For some people, that might be allowing your kid to go in the college they got into but you can't afford, or having a car that's reliable, or a down payment on a house, or not stressing out about a medical bill that might be coming up because you're entering that stage of life. For Tina, I know two things, even though I haven't asked her this question. Number one, Charlie, her wiener dog, would get the best meal a good boy has ever had that day. And then I'm pretty sure that it would be people in Tina's orbit that felt the impact of that money pretty pronouncedly. And now, because of the work this council did, we're going to get to find out in 10 years what Tina would do with that sort of money, God willing, and everybody else in that building. It's a very, very cool thing to be a part of, and we appreciate your partnership.
Wow, thank you very much, Chris. You just have a couple items on your plate. And they're very impressive from the very beginning. And it's interesting because the first time I was looking through all the slides, I'm like, none of these seems like there's connection. I'm looking at this one house and I'm looking at, I'm like, not realizing that it's like just multiple projects you're working on. And so I really appreciate all the work you got going. So council, any comments or questions? Board member Warden.
Thank you, Chris. And just want to thank you for the update. And it was so exciting to go to the opening of this this project last fall. And this is definitely one of the programs that I'm most proud of in my time on the council, and hope that we can keep building on it, because I do think it's a really incredible model for places to replicate in other cities and states. And it was great to have all the attention and all the people there talking about how great this project is, but this was a Salt Lake City project from the beginning and has been a Salt Lake City project through and through, and I hope it'll be the first of many.
Thanks.
Board member Lopez Chavez.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to say thank you to staff as well as Chris Parker and Give Group. Actually, just saw Chris at the opening of the Victory Heights project, which is Blazer Ventures project, but just wanted to recognize how much knowledge Chris and the Give team has and how they amplify that knowledge through other development groups as well. And just wanted to say how impressive the PHF fund has been, both to promote and fiscally understand. I think this is the exact tool that is an antidote to the symptoms that we face, and just providing real economic support to families. I'm really curious to see, I'd love to just hear more about the 3 to 4 family-sized housing units, 3 to 4 rooms, sized units that, was it, do you think it was just families? Is it a product that we should be pushing for? I know there's a lot of development still of studios and a 17% vacancy average right now across the city. I would just love to understand a little bit more of that, if you can expound more.
Honestly, we feel that there's more or less unlimited demand for affordable family housing. I think you're seeing that with schools, having trouble keeping students. I mean, young families have young kids, and young families can't afford to live in Salt Lake City. And so the ancillary benefit of having, some sort of educational presence right next to housing, they really are almost immediately gone. So anecdotally, from our experience, we're looking at building a lot more. We're actually shifting most of our model to 2, 3s, and 4s. It's harder to build. It's a lot easier to finance, or it's a lot easier to pencil a studio and 1-bed project, especially at the 4% level. But the need is also kind of set aside by the stability of it. The average large unit in our portfolio turns less than half as frequently as a studio or a 1-bed. People desperately appreciate and need that housing, and they don't move. And I think for communities that are looking for stability and people to stay and put in roots and be able to go ahead and have the bandwidth to understand what the community is and also contribute, you get a lot of that with ownership. But I don't think you only get that with ownership. You get that with stable families. And ultimately, we've seen that that's exactly the case. A 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom just are probably not going to move unless they, happily get a big job somewhere else. But if they're living in this community, they're probably staying in that style of place as long as their kids will let them.
Thank you, Chris. Board member Carlson.
I just want to say thank you to the council members or board members before me for investing in such an important project. And Board Member Wharton, I can only imagine the pride you feel in hearing some of these things. I just want to just lift up some of what you shared as, for me, an ideal as we move forward towards development in the city. You know, mixed income doesn't just look like different income brackets living next to each other. It's about having what was a Montessori school, which might be something that higher end individuals access, but now it's near and you're bumping up against folks from different income backgrounds in the same space. And you're replicating what, you know, sometimes previously would happen in religious institutions where people from different backgrounds would come up next to each other in a space in a way that I think helps to promote social mobility and economic mobility connected to that. So I appreciate that you're doing that. I appreciate, you know, the concerted effort with nonprofits and thinking about how a whole building could be a place that really not only supports families, but the greater ecosystem with the United Way. Appreciate the for sale units, and, you know, I understand that it may not be all of them, but just putting in some, we begin to make progress. And so just really appreciate that commitment, along with the wealth building opportunities. And you didn't mention it here, but with Tina's story, what came to mind for me too is the opportunity for multi-generational living. We think about the best neighborhoods are multi-generational. We've got, you know, 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds, and how can we design neighborhoods and projects that embrace that multi-generational living? So thank you for the creativity. Thank you for the trying something new, seeded with support from the city. But I think we're seeing some exciting developments here I'd love to see replicated in other projects.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member.
Thank you. I'm super excited with this update. Thanks for all the hard work, for answering all my hard questions at the first stage and making it a reality now. It's definitely a bright spot and a moment in history where we all need one. So I'm deep appreciation. Really interested in the renter's equity. I am not one of these people who, I grew up in Europe. I don't have the attachment to home ownership that we do here. And this seems to take away the primary stigma of renters, which is that you never have the chance to attain any equity or recoup anything. But there's a lot of reasons that people should rent, like the fact that I still have a crown molding that I haven't put up that would just require a nail gun. I should probably have a landlord and not be a homeowner. So there's so many reasons, and I love, especially for people who are aging, the opportunity to not abandon the chance to set aside money for medical bills or the things that equity does, but maybe not have to do all of that. So you mentioned, had her previous place been a PHF, that she would be eligible to access that $70,000. Would that continue to grow commensurately with market forces the same way like my owned home's equity grows?
Mm-hmm. In fact, that's exactly how it became 70. And there's some really nice functions to that too. It's, homeowners have often their largest investment kind of growing quietly in the background. And it's not getting taxed while it grows.
Right.
It just kind of exists and exists and exists. And then when it's ready for you to pull out, you might not even be taxed on it then, as long as it's under certain limits for equity. And so the PHF model rolls on in perpetuity as long as we own the project. You get an annual cut of whatever the cash flow is, 75% in the case of 515. And that's that little bit of money that's nice. I mean, it's not going to change your life probably, but it is going to change your month, and might be the reason why that car problem is not circling down into a check cashing place and you losing your place to rent. But in the background, just as if you kind of owned equity, the property is paying down its mortgage. And if rents go up, the person who normally gets benefited by rents going up is the landlord. In this case, it's the tenant. And so, LIHTC rents are more or less fixed, and whatever they do, they do. In the case of North 6, the property I was talking about, they've gone up quite a bit. AMI was something approaching $70,000 when that project got built. It's 120 plus now. And the benefit accrued to those people who went ahead and built that building. And my partners are great on that building. I have no animosity whatsoever to them. But I'd love my partners to now be the people living in the building. And so really the economic life of that building, if you cashed out, if Tina, lived in there 10 years and the property refinanced in 12, she would get 10/12 of all the money that got cashed out. And then the next tenant would get 2+ for as long as they lived, because there might be another refinance in 20 years. And kind of on down the line it goes. All of the economic, or the majority of the economic benefit of these projects, just like owning a home, will always accrete to these residents, regardless of if they're the same residents or not. Which is nice, because honestly, if you think about the cost of buying a home, you've got realtor fees and title fees and whatnot. It's expensive to get into a home. I myself rent in one of our projects. It's not always the best idea. The thing that makes it the best idea is usually stability and the economic potentiality, not guarantee, but potentiality of ownership. This takes away all the downside of that potentiality of ownership. If the property is worth less in 10 years, if you're a homeowner, shucks. If the property is worth less in one of these buildings, you get no downside. You get most of the economic upside, protection from the downside, and something as easy to fill out a lease as any other property in the city. So we're hoping it does provide that middle ground that gives most of the benefits with very few of the downsides.
Thank you for proving. I'm really nervous that we're actually creating a two-class system within our city where homeowners are esteemed at a different level than renters, and I just don't think that's something that's necessary. So I love that you're proving a model that actually mitigates the foundation of all why we would do that. You're actually promoting investment from people who, quote unquote, might otherwise be transitory. Can I come visit you? Because I think there's questions off, like, I would love to know what you're doing about credit worthiness, especially we know that lower income correlates, since credit really is just a measure of how much money you have at this point, not how responsible you are with the money you have. I'd love to know how we're doing that just for an equity lens, but thank you. I'm really excited about this.
Oh, we'd love to connect further.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Pui.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We needed good news, and this project back in the day when we started talking about it, and at least from our side in 2023 and 2024, I mean, it's incredible where this is, and there is like people's stories now, the real impact on people here living in Salt Lake City, and it's great to see that. It's great to see that you give us a taste of how this is, where this is headed, and this is the proof of concept. I remember trying to understand back in the day how all this work out, and it wasn't the easiest thing for me, at least, to understand how complex the funding mechanism. I remember those charts, and I went over them multiple times and trying to see how will this really work, and if it could work, why wasn't it done before? But it wasn't. And I'm glad that we're actually doing it here in Salt Lake City and that you are having success with this project. And from our perspective, those $10 million that we put from ARPA funding probably are going to be the most impactful ARPA funding that we have invested in probably ever in our city. That was an incredible vision from the administration, from our mayor, to invest heavily on this and to ask us to do that. I'm very excited for those 1,000 units that this money is going to yield eventually. These are 1,000 families that are going to be benefiting from living in Salt Lake City, not only as renters, but like with all the benefits related to the profit advance and the trade-off, just like that example that you mentioned. So it's very exciting to see this actually not be a chart, and be real. So however we can tell the story. You said that you answered the phone like 16 times to tell other people. Maybe you want to start just charging a little bit. So, another revenue line, maybe we can build another building with that.
Well, honestly, I mean, it's some of that. Those were 16 people in government. I mean, you had actually several nonprofit developer groups. I mean, the thing about trying something new is you guys took on the risk, but when it works, people will copy it, hopefully. And so you might have someone in Nantucket building a building, and those people living in it won't know that you guys are the reason it happened. Because I think ultimately it's really important to talk about why the Salt Lake City investment was needed. In a typical development project that's just market rate and naturally aspirated, two groups really want to make money. The developer really wants to maximize their money, and also the people that gave them money really want to maximize the money. And if you have one or the other, the whole thing doesn't work. But the city's investment really being this sort of, capped and deeply generous from an economic perspective, but deeply wise from an impact perspective investment allows the whole model to work, and it doesn't without that. And I think it'll happen quickly. I mean, the 1,000 units over 20 years it's a great thing. I'm glad we committed to 20. But really, we would like over the next 12 months to locate 2 more good pieces of land. And that combined with what we already have is the 1,000 units. We might be able to break ground on those, not maybe complete, but break ground on all those 1,000 within 5 years, not within 20. So we're just excited to see the snowball get going. And it took a big push. I'll also, again, call out, Allison and Tracy and Danny. Those sheets were convoluted because it was new. And through the kind of crucible of getting it through your fine city people, as well as the good lawyers of Goldman Sachs and others, it became real. So I'll say thank you probably 20 times. But
Thank you. Last thing, Mr. Chair, and it was mentioned here before, but the work of our staff and the CRA staff, is impressive, and the impact that you have made, working through those sheets of numbers and whatnot, it really is like multi-generation impact. Thank you for the work because it really changes lives. So I want to congratulate everybody at the CRA, especially you here in front of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the update and stuff. And I just kind of want to echo a couple of points that Board Member Carlson pointed out, and really just kind of warmed my heart about the over 515, e-bikes on the bottom, Montessori school, affordable housing, United Way, co-working space, all in one building, all that mixed of people from different backgrounds, different educations, different areas together in one building. And I really did, I look forward to when the whole building is fully occupied, and then just hear the chatter of what's going on there, and all the interaction that's going on there to develop and help people come up and see, hey, there's other ways to do things and other perspectives, and I really appreciate that very much. And then the mixed income on the second building, and the Palmer Court, and the small house on 1,000 West, right? All that stuff is really helpful in making sure that we're not just pigeonholing different groups in different spots, but we're mixing everybody together to make it a more enjoyable place to live. So very much appreciated your update, and I can't wait for the next one. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Moving on to item number 4, straw poll, transferring CRA funds to Jefferson Park. Allison Rowland, Lauren Parisi. Allison is not here right now. Lauren Parisi and Amy Reed. There they are. And Tyler? And Tyler.
Nice to see you today. So we are here, Public Lands and I, to present a straw poll request to support enhancements to Jefferson Park, which is located, if you're not aware, at approximately 1100 South and West Temple, just north of the ballpark. This is a city park, and it's in the CRA's State Street project area. And right now, Public Lands is actively planning improvements to the park, which include a walking loop trail around the park's perimeter, but it's evident that more funds are needed to complete additional placemaking efforts that they'll go over in just a second. This funding allocation would come from the CRA's fiscal year 23 State Street Infrastructure Improvement Fund, which has a balance of $500,000. CRA staff would also like to recommend revising the allocation for this project to $300,000 instead of the $150,000 identified in the staff report to account for additional funding that may not be realized as originally anticipated to help ensure this project's successful delivery. So if $300,000 is approved, this would leave approximately $200,000 in that fiscal year 23 State Street Infrastructure Fund. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy Reed, landscape architect with Public Lands, to share more about the details of the project and the process moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren, and to the CRA for recommending Jefferson Park. And thank you for this opportunity to come on behalf of Public Lands and share about our efforts to revitalize Jefferson Park. And how do
Just see next slide.
Next slide.
There it is.
Jefferson Park is a neighborhood connector for people and wildlife. With the recent 9 line to the north and the upcoming ballpark next to the south, you can see Jefferson Park is uniquely positioned. We could say it is the heart of the neighborhood. It is near the track station and just a block from Meetup, which has, as you know, kind of a small pop-up park in ways that the neighborhood has come together and really created a new space because they really wanted park space. So this is a neighborhood that I have really enjoyed spending time with through engagement. It's a passionate neighborhood, and they really want to see Jefferson Park be a place that they can use more regularly. It is also a connector for wildlife. You can see Liberty Park on the east and Jordan on the west, and Jefferson is our really only significant green space in between for birds to be able to stop at, for butterflies, for little creatures that can help our ecosystems. So it's important, and the improvements we will make will help improve that ecology as well. Next slide. So what are we doing at Jefferson Park at Public Lands? Well, we are reimagining it with the help of the neighborhood and community. We have $750,000 in general obligation bond funding and $530,000 that was awarded to a constituent CIP for a walking loop path, lighting, and amenities. This total does not include $300,000 in a playground that Public Lands just installed last fall, and it's a really nice, significant new playground, good size, about $300,000. So for this project, we did an initial round of community engagement. I went to many different community events over the fall and winter. We have now our concept designs that we're ready to share with the public next Wednesday. So it's a great timing for us to collaborate with the CRA. And then once we have that final approved, we'll move immediately into construction documentation. And we would love to start the project construction late fall, early winter, 2025. Could push to 26, but we're doing all we can. We're very focused on building parks. Got parks to build, that's what I always say. So what are some of our key features? I don't want to go into all of these right now. It's here for you. But really, we're trying to make this a safer park, a park where people come, they can stay, they can get exercise, they can connect with nature and with each other as neighbors. And I think safety is key to all of this because we don't use our parks unless we feel safe in them. And that is what we heard from the community. So the CRA investment, why is this important? Why do we need more money? We can do the basic plan, but we cannot get, one of the crime prevention through environmental design principles is high quality design with placemaking. And I've read this in CRA documents, I've read it in your strategies, your tactics, and it is one of those core SEPTED principles. And so when we can get additional money to elevate or create a placemaking feature that we don't have funds for, maybe we're gonna go to the public and ask their opinions, but that pump station, we can figure out some way to make that a fun, it's part of the identity, but let's make it fun and and create some kind of artistic element to it and make it vibrant. Vibrant paving, seating, and plantings. Let's bring in some native plantings. And that's our vision for Jefferson, that it will feel a sense of place for the community and a sense of place in our region, that we have appropriate materials there that tell us where we are. So this, I think it goes from being a good park. We could deliver a really good park, but with the additional funding, we feel like we can deliver a great park. Okay, next slide. Just to show you, its primary function is a detention basin. So it is a park, but first and foremost, a detention basin. We are very closely working with public utilities to make sure any improvements maintain the feature of the detention basin, the primary function. Next slide. We kind of went over this challenge, but if you're interested in hearing just a little bit more, why is it such a challenge? There's physical reasons of the park's design that help create the challenge we're experiencing today, and that's because it was built in the mid-'80s by engineers when they made the detention basin. So now we've got landscape architects that can help us and make those connections to human safety and health. So it's near the tracks. That's a good thing, and it can also bring challenges. The detention basin, today we build detention basins that are level with the sidewalk, and they come down into the basin, but back then in the 80s, they made a little berm. And so now Jefferson allows for places to go and hide. It's also not meant to be walked up and into and down and through when it was designed, but that's what we want to do. We want to bring people in on that Fremont block that is one long, uninterrupted block, and we want to create ways for people to get into and up on that loop trail, then down into the basement and cross over. So we want to create a really active, connected park. Again, challenge. That connectivity is poor, lacks identity, we've gone over that, and lighting is a big issue. That is part of what we'll be doing. And not just, big overhead light, but how to make lighting be a place-making feature. Okay, next slide. So our vision, I feel like we've touched on a lot of this. The one thing I will say is, sustainable sites is something that through our sustainable infrastructure policy that we are trying to implement. It is required in our park projects of a construction budget of $2 million or more. We're not at that for Jefferson, but we are actively working to incorporate those principles into the way we think about it. And sites plans for ecological health, but also human health and the things that we've been talking about. And one of those things, again, with SEPTED is we want to make it so it's easily maintained, so we have a park that can be, it's not going to require a lot of maintenance and then become unruly. So that's important. Next slide. And again, I think we can just very quickly, this relates to your State Street plan. Because of objective number 1, neighborhood revitalization. It's not technically a building, and so when we say buildings and blight or vacant lots to reduce crime, it's definitely a site that has been highlighted by the community as needing improvement for crime because of crime activities that happen there. The police are very aware of it, and in one of my engagements, I talked to a mom who came to the playground opening, and she said, "This will be the first and last time that we come to the park. We live across the street, but I won't come here because it's not safe." And it just broke my heart. And I said, "You're going to be the mom that I'm fighting for as we do this park." So next slide. Public spaces and transportation. So when we looked at this, we looked at the connectivity that it can provide for the neighborhood and feel like it really does help with that objective. Next slide. And finally, your standards as a CRA are the standards we are looking to achieve in this project. Support pedestrian-friendly development, encourage placemaking, engage in high-quality design, use durable materials. Next slide. So we have identified we've gone over, I think, a CRA investment to our project. We would be able to, like I said, elevate that design. We've identified different entrance areas here. So currently, we have, you can enter the park through the three corners, but none of them feel substantial. They don't feel like gateways. They just feel like a little forgotten sort of spot. So we're going to elevate all of these entrances and make it feel like a place, make it feel like an entry, native plantings, wider seating areas, lighting where we can, and again, bringing people across that Fremont. So next slide. Area number 1 on the west, we're talking about putting in a wet meadow kind of feature or really native plantings. Think of wildlife. We're working these details out, but we want that west area so when you come along that loop trail, you can sit here for a minute, you can look out, and even just if you're looking over the park, it's really quite beautiful from that location. Next slide. The mid-block entrance, really important to get people into the park from that mid-block like we talked about. Next slide. The Gultz Avenue to the north, this was the intent here is to bring people from the 9 line and meet up. So it lines up with the alley entrance, which in transportation's plan, they talk about activating the alleyways for pedestrians. So it would not be as big as this. We're in some discussions with public utilities, but there would be some kind of entrance placemaking for this spot. Okay, next slide. And West Temple, we really have an opportunity here. Right now it is, like I said, a maintenance plaza. So, how can we really bring that sense of placemaking through a signage, putting some lights somehow on that little, public utilities feature, and let's green it up, so welcome people to the park. Okay, next slide. And then next slide. These are a few precedents just to show you we really want to green up the park. We want to move people in the park and through the park. Next slide. And just the way we will be implementing this up TED. And I just want to leave with a quote from Trust for Public Lands. Safe, quality green spaces improve communities' physical, mental, and environmental health. Access to nature and the outdoors is a powerful public health strategy that should be available to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Board Member Carlson.
Board Member Dugan, how did you know? I immediately had a lot of energy on this. Thank you. I should say Chair. Well, first, I just want to say thank you to the Public Lands team and CRA for their community engagement on this project, and want to actually give a special shout out to Lauren and other CRA staff who were at a community meeting until 10 o'clock last Thursday, answering questions about the larger vision for Ballpark Next. And a lot of what community members were surfacing was the real need for more green space in the Ballpark neighborhood. So thank you to you and the other CRA staff members who were there quite late at night. A couple things I want to just raise that I appreciate about this proposal that you've put forward. I appreciate the whole ecosystem perspective, recognizing that it's not just us human beings that are occupying this space and time, but we've got all other critters, some seen and unseen, that we're a part of, and the opportunity to do some native plantings to support those other beings that then allow us to be healthy in this place. And so I appreciate that whole ecosystem perspective. I also want to name that at a possible price tag, at least for this, what this request is of $300,000, if I heard that correctly, it's a steal compared to the amount that we have historically had to, I imagine, had to spend investing in responding to crime, investing in responding to neighbors' concerns, and the police departments responding to unsavory activities happening in this park. And so I feel like this is a wise stewardship of funding that supports the neighborhood. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that mom who came over to enjoy that brand new playground, which I can't tell you, when I told a 6-year-old who lives across the street that a brand new playground was coming, the excitement and the joy. that child had. And the reality that for some families, this is the only access to green space that they might have, where this is the only access. And so investing in this benefits not just those families, but it benefits the kids, and it benefits an entire neighborhood that's sorely in need of greater green space and the opportunity to benefit a whole ecosystem, other critters, birds, bugs, plants, etc., that we're all connected to. And so thank you for caring about our small little park, Jefferson Park. It never, I imagine, was meant to become a park, but I appreciate, we're thinking about our flood management, water management, but also thinking about how to support whole well-being in this area. So I'm very in favor and supportive and excited about this. So you're definitely picking up on something, Chair Dugan.
Thank you. Board Member Puig.
I have a few quick questions about the vision here. It is not lost on me that this was more of a Jefferson detention basin than a park. I driven by it 1,000 times and I never felt like it was a park. And I knew it was a basin, I knew it was called a park, but it was not inviting to be a park. So I'm glad that you are, changing the function of it for the neighborhood. That is amazing. Now, can you explain why 150 and then 300? And I worried, when I see these precedents and I see some of these things that you've shown us here, which are amazing, that $300,000. It was used, the word here in the presentation was to elevate the design. And, I don't know what that looks like, right? But it seems like 300,000 will elevate the design to accomplish this. And I don't want to set the expectations wrong for the neighbors. So, specifically just maybe illustrate it for me, what will you be able to do with this $300,000 additionally? Just a specific example for us to at least for me to really picture it. I think that would be helpful. And then the third question, if there is one, is how much money is this affecting any of the funding left over on the CRA area? And do we have any projects that we were going to use that money for? If not, that's okay.
Yeah, let me answer that first. We kind of assessed the funds in the State Street project area and felt very comfortable contributing $300,000 to Jefferson Park. We also have State Street strategic intervention funds that we've been kind of setting aside every year since the project area's creation that have very healthy balances. So we feel comfortable setting this money aside for Jefferson Park.
Yes, thank you for your question. And we just today got our breakdowns of the cost estimates for our two concepts, and I would love to share the concepts with the CRA board. We did not include it in this packet for a couple of reasons. One is we want to share that with the public at our open house on Wednesday, and we really didn't want it floating out there before we had a chance to, share the vision behind it. And frankly, after, maybe getting some direction today that we could share. So, but I could share it via email. I would love to do that if it helps be able to see more clearly in the concept what we're trying to achieve. And we have cost estimates of, here is what I asked for as a bare bones, which we could do in our budget, and what would be the full, what extra things, how much more to get what you see in that plan. And I think that would really answer your question. I could go line by line, but really it's a matter of, we can do the good park or the great park. And I know that's not specific, but I do have those numbers and those plans that will, I think, be great to digest if you're interested. And we also want to hear from the community on their, which concept they want. One is more expensive than the other. So we will take probably pieces of each.
More expensive than the $300,000?
Oh, no. So what we will do is we will go ahead and take, if we get the $300,000, we will then modify what we can deliver to the public within that amount. So it might be a little less planting, it might be a little less of a placemaking feature or a light, but we can do the things we talked about. It's just maybe a matter of quantities. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, please do send us. That would be great. Board Member Lopez Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo the sentiments from Councilmember Carlson. I think the thing that stands out the most to me that's just very clear is that the public was seeking to have funding that could help respond to some of the symptoms of public safety. And what I love about it is how anchored in public safety is into this design through SEPTED, but also just through lighting and response. I was just curious to see if there were any other additional requests or requests that we could see in the future. I'd love to see how we can better promote SEPTED design in parks. I think that's something that D4 and D5 are always looking at, and just wanted to reiterate again my general support, but also support that we continue to invest in Jefferson Park. I think this is one critical step that we'll take. For lighting, I also wanted to hear if there's any response to a lot of the dogs in the areas. There's a lot of animal waste, and just wanted to hear if that was included in this design.
So we will install more dog waste signs. We did not address taking dogs out, like taking away the off-leash time at this point. People feel safer in the park when their dogs are with them. And we felt we needed to first make this a safe park. And if that means coming with your dog, it's contained kind of in a basin, and so we'll have more baggie stations for sure. We're gonna have a drinking fountain with a little doggy dish. I think it makes people feel like they can be there. And just to respond to the SEPTED, we do have two people in our parks, one in our maintenance team who is the supervisor over Jefferson, and one of my colleagues who is getting certified in SEPTED. So it is something that is on our minds in public lands, and we think is a very valuable for the community. And I've really personally enjoyed learning about it and learning how to apply it to the principles of design here.
Thank you. Board Member Young.
Yeah, no, I just also want to express support and appreciation. I was recently doing the county point in time count with Board Member Carlson, and it was one of the places we visited as we were kind of trying to gather more information about individuals experiencing homelessness. And I think the thing that struck me most is that as we were going by, I was like, why would you design a park with a big old hill before you get in? And luckily I had the most expert, Board Member Carlson, to explain to me that no, that was not the original use case. And hence there were opportunities for improvement. So I appreciate trying to blend the various needs related to that parcel and finding opportunities to make it more welcoming. It does feel very bare right now. And you kind of go by and it's a little like, is this public land or is this a property that's just not developed yet? It's not always super clear. And so I think that community and placemaking is really important. And so I'm excited to see the concepts, but I think that's the piece that I would just echo is also important. It's not just about the safety and the functionality, but that people feel like it's a park that they can go and enjoy and that represents the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you much. I'll just echo what everybody else said, so I won't have to repeat myself. So I will look for a straw poll.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve allocating $300,000 from the State Street Infrastructure Improvements category to a new CRA category called Jefferson Park.
All right. Show your feelings.
I have my hand raised, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Amy, Lauren, Tyler, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the CRA and Lauren.
Moving on to item number 5, report and announcements from the executive director. Executive Director? Nope. Report to Chair and Vice Chair. Vice Chair?
Just wanted to congratulate again Victory Heights opening today.
All righty, I have nothing else to report. And now reports to Chair of the CRA staff, Kara.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Let's see, could we go to the next slide? We just have 3 updates today. The first one, we just wanted to call your attention to a memo that's provided in your packet in the written briefing. This was drafted, a collaborative memo between CRA and Public Lands in response to some feedback and a request we got from the January 13th board meeting. Specifically asking about the status of the Folsom Trail landscaping and irrigation project by Public Lands, and then asking how Public Lands and CRA are coordinating efforts for the City Creek daylighting project. So just quickly wanted to hit some points from that memo. Public Lands, starting with Public Lands, they've been working with a design consultant on the Folsom Trail landscaping and irrigation project's construction documents. They're getting close to their 90% design review and hope to start construction in 2026 and be substantially complete by the end of the year. They are also working with sustainability in the Attorney's Office to coordinate with DEQ, EPA, and Union Pacific to evaluate options for providing trail landscaping and irrigation improvements near the American Barrel Superfund site, which is close to the North Temple Viaduct and 5th West. So that's the status of Public Lands project. And just touching on the coordination between Public Lands and CRA on City Creek daylighting project, we've been working together since about 2019, starting with a feasibility study that we conducted not only with Public Lands, but also with engineering, planning, and transportation to evaluate options and whether it would be feasible to bring a portion of City Creek's flow to the surface in Folsom Corridor. That feasibility study found that it would be possible, so that led to the development of a design plan and 40% construction drawings that we finished in 2023. So now that Public Lands is doing an irrigation and landscaping project, they're working to incorporate as many of the elements from that 40% design into their project as possible. And the goal is to advance some of those improvements that were in the design plan, improve the safety along the trail, and also make sure that anything that's constructed as part of their project wouldn't have to be removed if we move forward with the City Creek daylighting project. So. And then finally, just now that we've received the state grant funding and additional CRA funding to complete the design, CRA will be collaborating with Public Lands and Public Utilities to issue an RFP for a consultant to do that design. And we'll be having a city collaborative team reviewing that moving forward.
Mr. Chair.
Board Member Puy, excuse me.
I sincerely appreciate the update. That's a big deal to me because I been a little lost on the whole, process because there are multiple moving parts here. Now, the concern still there for me as far as like now that this update is here is the concern about just doubling down on the daylighting part of the study. When I'm not sure we have, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and very high possibilities here. But as far as I understand, we haven't identified the funding not only for the daylighting, but also for the landscaping and irrigation pieces of the original, the basic landscaping of the area. So maybe I'm a little confused as far as like how all of these things play together. But what I don't want it to happen is like that we have a concrete path in the middle of nothing, and we call that a trail, and we are like still doubling down on more studies, and we have no one tree growing in it. So which is, we were just talking about another park that is not doing what it's supposed to do. So I'm concerned about that, creating another space, which is a problem at the moment, unfortunately, where we are like dreaming so big and not able to deliver any basic attraction or like, fulfill like our goals here of making a space for the community. So maybe you can help me understand how all of these pieces play together, so I can try to rationalize all of this. Personally, I really would like to make sure that my neighbors are not yet years away from seeing a tree planted in this trail, quote unquote.
Right. That's a great question, and you're right, there are a lot of moving parts here. My understanding is that Public Lands does have funding to move forward with their landscaping and irrigation project. And so, and what they've said is that they are hoping that that will be complete this year. So that will involve putting in some landscaping, but you're right, the City Creek daylighting project does not have funding allocated to it for completion.
If I remember right, so we did approve the funding for the trees. This is why like the original question was, because I remember we did, but we still like waiting. So your update means that Public Lands is still waiting for the final design to be done to be able to start installing the landscaping, and they hope to potentially get it done this year. Is that really what?
They are waiting for their final design. So they are at the point of having their 90% design review, and then they will be able to get their permits and put their project out to bid and start adding irrigation and landscaping to the corridor. So they're not waiting for the daylighting design to do their project, but they have pulled some elements from the daylighting design plan, landscaping, into their project, so that the two plans are compatible, and in the future we wouldn't have to pull something out if we did the daylighting.
That will make sense to me. So that we can still daylight it without destroying all of the improvements we made. But ultimately the question, so that's good news, I guess. That's what I wanted to get to. So like potentially we're gonna see some trees coming up this year.
Yes.
And some landscaping. So that's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
That out of the way, which I can actually speak to the neighbors, finally, and give them some hope. So I'm very excited about that piece. And it took a couple of years, if I remember right, that we voted for that funding a while ago. So that's why I became a little lost on where it was. But do we have any idea where the daylighting funding could come from, and what the final tagline or potentially final tagline will be? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. We haven't identified funding sources yet, but we do know that there are grants available that often require projects to be shovel ready. So we feel like the investment in completing the design is one that will help us identify funding sources in the future. So, and we also have a nonprofit partner, Seven Canyons Trust, who is actively looking for grant opportunities, funding opportunities for the eventual completion of the daylighting project.
I love that. What my concern is this, and I'm going to just say it straight up, is that we are going to find a different project that will distract us from this one yet again, and we're not going to be able to to fund it. I'm a little concerned about setting the expectation yet very high again. We have a dream that is very expensive, and I would love to have it. I mean, we just serve it in our part of town. And we're gonna, have a halfway done project. So but at the same time, you have engaged the community. I participated in some of those a couple of years ago. The community is excited to see something there. This is like, I'm hoping that I get a commitment from the administration and the CRA in general to make sure that we finish this one fully somehow. And if that means to tone down some of these aspects of this daylighting or like simplify it to make sure that something does happen and is not just completely empty. Again, I hope that we can go shoot for the stars and get there, but I worry that we are going to shoot for the stars and get nowhere. So that really is my concern about this one. So I would love any direction of like where the funding could come from, so we are aware of like to make sure that this is a commitment we made to this community, and it's a big one. So we need to find the money.
Yeah. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Were there any other questions on that?
No further questions on that one. Okay. Did you have anything else you would?
Yeah, there's two more slides.
Sure.
Yeah. Next slide, please. We will be launching the North Temple Mural Project this month. The project will bring large-scale murals to the corridor with the goal of celebrating the neighborhood's identity and reflecting the area's history and culture. We'll be partnering with local artists through the Arts Council pre-qualified artist pool, and 5 to 7 property owners. So right now, we're opening up applications starting February 15th, open through March 15th, for a call for walls, and we're hoping to identify 5 to 7 property owners and match those properties with artists from the artist pool. So that will be open in just a few days.
Where's Chris Wharton is the question. That's the ultimate question.
I know.
Right?
Yep. If we just talked too much in the last couple briefings.
I will make sure that he sees this part of the presentation.
Yeah. He's yes.
This is a big deal for many of our goals. Ultimately, also to bring some good art to the corridor there. So thank you so much for prioritizing this and to making it focus. It is the gateway to our city in so many ways, and it deserves that attention. So thank you.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank Taylor Folger, who's our project coordinator, who's taken the lead on that. So, and then final slide. This is the hardest one. The end of February, our senior project manager, Lauren Parisi, will be leaving the CRA to relocate to be closer to family. Lauren's been with the city for 10 years and with the CRA for 6 years. Anyone who's worked with Lauren knows she's an incredibly effective project manager, but more than that, she's passionate, thoughtful, and caring in everything she works on. Some of her successes include developing the Sustainable Development Policy, which was adopted by the board in 2021, creating the State Street project area and the 9-line project area. She saw these through by negotiating with the taxing entities and getting approval from them. She completed the application and got approval for the city's first HTRZ, the 9th South HTRZ. Lauren drafted and finalized the HTRZ tax increment policy, which was adopted by the board in 2023 and is currently guiding our process with evaluating tax increment reimbursement applications from developers in the HTRZs. Lauren has led the ballpark visioning effort, which involved working with the community and finalizing Ballpark Next community design plan, which was recently adopted by the board. And recently, Lauren's been putting her efforts into the 9-line properties at 4th South and 9th West, which we have dubbed the Peacock Blocks. And she's been working on acquisition, due diligence, and negotiation of 3 separate transactions in that node. So it's probably obvious from this list of accomplishments that we're going to miss Lauren terribly. But we're very happy that she has this opportunity to move closer to family and wish her the best.
Lauren, I don't know if we approved that. Did we approve that as a board?
I don't think we've approved that, no.
We did not vote on that. It's been wonderful working with you for the last 6 years as I've been on the board or in the council. Wow, 6 years. And so congratulations. I loved your work, all the accomplishments, and yeah, I can't say enough. So I'm very, very happy for you, sad for Danny and Kara and the rest of the staff.
Thank you so much, Board Chair. I echo,
Yeah, good luck.
Mr. Chair, I just have to take this opportunity to also lament. But Lauren, I first met Lauren as a community member related to the Ballpark Next, and the professionalism that you showed up with in all of those meetings that were hard, but your commitment to the community and to doing what's right in the long term shine through. Your responsiveness to community members who ask you a whole range of questions, your long-term perspective. I am very sad to see you go, but I hope that you feel proud of the legacy that, you know, through your role that you've contributed to here to in Salt Lake City, and to, you know, a place that's people's homes in our neighborhoods. And so wishing you all the very best, but I am deeply, deeply bummed.
It's pretty
quickly, and I know we're like running short on time, and much of that is my fault. I want to say that you know, you worked in a lot of the projects that I care a lot about, and certainly I've been lucky that way to have the CRA and you know, focus on you leading some of those projects. Champion for the West Side, you are a champion for the West Side, and many people will not know that because some of the things that you worked on and you started will make a lasting impact for a long, long time. So thank you on behalf of my neighbors.
fair winds and following seas.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Board members, we have a written briefing on the Folsom Trail project updates. Read through it. If you have any questions, you know where to find Kara. And that, no consent, no tentative closed meetings. We are adjourned for the board meeting starting at 4:05.
4:10.
4:10.
I need
Thank you.
Thank you.